evening, sports fans. Welcome back to ChelsChat with JB and Moose. We're here for another action-packed weekend talking around Chelsea. So, Jamie, what are your thoughts? Obviously, some big sort of dates in the diary came up this week. Some of the great stuff that we've done in the past. Obviously, no games again this weekend. But what are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, the shirt I'm wearing is from the 97 FA Cup final, which was the anniversary last week. And of course, the big one, 19th of May, the 8-year anniversary of our Champions League win, which was, as I like to call it, Chelsea Day.
Yep.
Nice celebration. Weather was beautiful for everyone. Everyone celebrating the day.
It was like a pandemonium on the streets. I mean, I remember watching that game back in university. Probably one of the most sort of up and down nights I've had ever watching football. It was almost sort of like, it had to be. It was one of those ones where we hadn't had the best run from a Champions League perspective. It was touch and go. I mean, that Napoli game.
I remember the second leg. That was when we signed up to do like the radio at university, and it was the same day as the varsity football that we were doing live commentary on.
I know.
And we were just keeping our eye on the score the whole time.
I remember as we were leaving the Rico Arena, and I stuck my head into the casino there, and it was just watching the sort of scores come in. I think I caught the last goal. It's just like we were very fortunate, but I think most teams that go to Champions League final and win have that fortunate or luck behind them. Because, I mean, we've had much better campaigns in Champions League and we've been cheated on a number of occasions, aka ghost goal.
Barcelona.
But it was one of that season. That was our year. Sort of, we brought in Roberto. And he wasn't the greatest manager in the world, but he had an amazing squad. He had that squad that weren't playing for Villas-Boas, but they were playing for him. He brought in that piece, and I mean, sort of that route. I mean, as you say, sort of that Napoli game, we should never have won, but we properly pulled it from the grass of sort of losing, and then that Champions League final. I think the reason it meant so much is the arrogance of Bayern. Like, yeah, we're at home. It's a home game for us.
I think there was a banner they had before the game, which was our city, our stadium, our trophy. And I mean, I've spoken to a few guys that were there, and they were saying, like, I think the players probably thought the same as we did in the stands, and that was, no, not this time. We're going to do it.
The heartbreak a couple of sort of years before United, that for me, it was like that. This has got to be our year, and it was that last season that Drogba was going to be in his prime, and all that sort of stuff. It just had to come together, and that final. I mean, standout performance was Drogba. I mean,
of course, yeah.
That
although
he just,
I was looking at some of the stats on Tuesday, and John Obi Mikel had like the game of his career. Like, no one thinks about that. Everyone thinks about, Czech with the penalties and obviously Drogba with the goals. Even people think about Bertrand playing his first ever starting his first ever Champions League game in the final, which, by the way, was a masterclass by Di Matteo.
Oh yeah.
But Mikel had an absolute blinder. Like, no one got past him in that midfield. He dominated it, and people forget, because he's one of those players you do just forget about most of the time.
He plays that role that you don't get a lot of pundits sort of giving you a load of praise. I mean, he's sort of, I won't say he was as good as, but he's that same as that Busquets player. He breaks up the play that allows other players to play the game they want to play. I mean, it's the sort of position that Chelsea's always had an amazing player in that. You look at Makelele, who created that role, to now Kante, who I think, in my eyes, is probably the best that we've ever seen in that role, which is why so many of our fans were so frustrated last season. when he wasn't played in that role. He is the best player in that position, and not a lot of pundits give him that credit. But as you say, Mikel had the game of his life playing that.
Even if you go back to the group stages that year, we struggled to get out of that group. It went down to the last game. I think it was against Bayer Leverkusen. And we really struggled to get through the group. Got through the group. I think we finished second in the group, which meant we had to play someone good. Napoli obviously we got dominated in the first leg.
Yep.
Cavani masterclass, and then second leg was, as we've just talked about. Benfica was probably the easiest game or the easiest tie for us, even though I think when we went to their stadium, no one had beaten them there for 3 or 4 years previous in any competition. So we went there and won 1-0, I believe. I think Ramirez got a goal there. Comeback Como was the game at Stamford Bridge against Benfica. Remember the Raul Morales goal on the break. And for the life of me, I still don't know why he didn't pass it, but he just belted it into the top corner, and that was, great goal. But that's probably the least memorable game of the whole run. And then obviously the Barcelona. Just incredible, especially considering, a few years before when the whole red card situation, when they should have had 4 players sent off. Oh, sorry, no, it was 4 penalties, wasn't it? 4 penalties.
Yeah. We were properly cheated. And then I think you just had so many good individual but team performances as well. So you had, like Ramirez pushing forward to get that, and the audacity to pull off that chip. That was just unreal. And then obviously Barca pushing everyone forward, and then Torres to get sort of probably his standout performance in a Chelsea shirt.
Goal alone was worth the 50 million.
Oh, it was.
I'd pay that. I would have paid that if you told me what he would do. Absolutely nothing except for that one goal. I would have said, "Yep, 50 million. I'll take it. That'll do."
And just to get Gary Neville's reaction, to be honest.
I think he enjoyed it just as much as we did.
I know. And then the final itself, obviously, for me and you being in a household, being the only Chelsea fans, and there being a lot of other fans in our household who are supporting London clubs.
Not just that, I think there's a few anti-Chelsea that we live with as well at the time.
I mean, we live with a lot of anti-Chelsea sentiment simply because people are scared of our success, I think.
Exactly,
But for me, it was sort of one of those ones where if you have that out-of-body experience and watch it, I'd love to have just experienced it again. Yeah. It's that watching a game that you just go, there's no way we're going to win this. No way. Sort of we've been dominated for most of the game, and then for someone like Drogba to pull it back in the last couple of minutes, take it to extra time, and then penalties.
I think when that Muller goal went in, I thought, okay, another Champions League final defeat. That was one of the worst teams we'd had in about 10 years up to that point, and I was thinking, we'd finished 5th in the league. We hadn't had a good season really. We won the FA Cup. That was a positive. But to go to the Champions League final in Munich against Munich in their own stadium, having a bad season, not being at our best. We had some of our best players were starting to get on a bit, and it kind of felt like close, but probably not the time. Even though we'd had that run, it never really sinks into you that this is, it's written in the stars, this will be our year.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's a bit like last year's Champions League with Tottenham and Liverpool, where you had just unbelievable forms. And do you know what I think sort of for us, the thing that was sort of really great, and if you look at it from a Tottenham fan's perspective and those guys' perspective, is last season's Champions League, as much the final was played in the semi-final. Sort of everyone watched those 2 great games, being sort of the Barca game and the sort of and the Ajax game, and you go, those were 2 standout games. For us, the thing that was brilliant is that we had standout games throughout the whole campaign of getting there. The Barca game was sort of like bittersweet, and then you go, as soon as you get to Bayern, you go, have we sort of had that amazing game already? Yeah. And then to pull it back from sort of literally watching sort of the game run away from us. That for me is sort of as a Chelsea fan, to win your first Champions League, to be the first London club to win the Champions League, and to win it in that fashion. I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted from it.
And the best thing I think is the fact that it always played in my mind that we were founded in 1905, and the date we won the Champions League was 1905, 19th of May.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't say written in the stars, I don't know what does. It would be on that day of all days that we would.
And it's just nice to join that club. I mean, sort of, we are that team that should have won the Champions League a lot earlier. Sort of haven't been cheated, and that's not just
the
a bit of Chelsea.
Year, I think the Ghost Goal year was probably the best team we've had, even up to now. I think is probably the best team we've had, and the fact that we should have won that, probably won that Champions League. I think we probably could have gone on to beat AC Milan, because remember Crespo was on loan from us at the time, so he wouldn't have been able to play. And he scored. I think it was him that scored a couple of goals at the beginning of that game. So they would have been a big player down, and we were just probably the best team in Europe at that point, I think. And if it wasn't for that Ghost goal, I think that would have been the time that we should have won it. But the time that we did win it, we probably shouldn't have won it. Exactly. We definitely weren't the best team in Europe at that point. So it comes back around, I think, at the end.
Yeah, sort of the Barca sort of heartbreak. I mean, I remember being a fan watching that and just sort of.
I've had some angry times as a Chelsea fan. I've been absolutely fuming at certain things, even sometimes, a bad throwing decision. I'm screaming at the TV, but that was just. I think I was just silent because, I didn't know what to do with my anger, because that was just horrendous.
It was just watching sort of a huge injustice. Sort of like you were just watching and going, "That's a penalty. That's a penalty." And you could even talk to it sort of, obviously at the time your mates would get a ribbon you for it, but watching it and all of them go, it's a clear penalty, and everyone knows it. It was just sort of just that sort of, at the time I didn't know what, I mean, sort of I could have thrown a lot of stuff at the TV at that point.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's a cry or scream or. And even up to the last minute, we were still going to go through despite all of that. But then Iniesta managed to. I mean, it was a good goal. Don't get me wrong, it was a good goal. But
I can only just about talk about it now.
I know it's painful. But I've tried avoiding 2008 final because that's even worse. Even worse to talk about. But we finally did it. 2012 was the year. It was meant to be. All the things kind of went in our favour. Not necessarily bad decisions or anything, because remember we gave away a penalty in the semi-final, and we gave away a penalty in the final. Czech did us a solid both times.
Yeah. So looking at, obviously, we've had some great success previously, but now looking forward, obviously that it's still, as we discussed last weekend, still a bit of an unknown what's going to happen this season. I mean, in all honesty, it looks as though it'll either be a points-based decision. I mean, they are training at the moment, even though you've got players like Kante who aren't staying in the squad, and I don't think will play based on what's happened to his brother in previous years, sort of that tragedy there. But I can't see it happening. And I've been watching some more of the Bundesliga. Equally, it's the passion's gone out of that. Watching sort of games being played behind the doors. I think Luis Enrique said it was like dancing with your sister, which as an analogy is not something I really want to focus on.
No, but I completely understand that point. It's like you're doing what you want to do as in dancing, but then it's just not in the way you want to do it. I can understand what he's talking about there.
I know, but it's one of those ones where you go, for me, as a fan, that we've not got a huge amount to lose. I mean, the Champions League spot being the only thing, and I think we can still do that. But for me, I think the fairest thing to do is probably to end the season so clubs can either pay back money or get focusing on the next season. Because at the moment, we're getting into the latter part of May with the Champions League still not finished, with the Premier League not finished, and we're starting to eat into next season now.
I
You
think
can't start.
they're talking about June the 12th, I think, as a possible return date, which gives them 5-6 weeks of training to before they're back in games. And I think my issue with it is now. I mean, before I would have said, yeah, if you can do it, then give it a go, because we all want to see football back. But we're gonna, as you said, Kante, Chelsea have said you don't have to play. If you don't want to play, you don't have to play. And he's basically said, okay, I'm not going to play for the rest of this season. So if we do complete the season, we've got one of our key players gone. Troy Deeney at Watford, the same, so they're going to be a key player down as well. And I understand, no matter what the scenario, it's going to be someone's going to suffer and someone's going to feel like it's unfair on them. I think if the players, even if it's a couple of them, if they don't feel like it's safe to go back and play, then perhaps they should just not go back and play the whole game and just end the season now. I don't really care how they do it, if they do it points per game, if they do it as just wipe it out, or if they just conclude it as it is and unfortunately give Liverpool the title, which I don't want to see. But even that way, I think that's probably the best way to do it, and just say, do you know what, season's done, everyone just look forward to the next season, and they don't even have to start worrying about fixture congestion or trying to get all these games in, where to play them. Just forget about that and just think about where can we go from next season, how can we start next season in a safe way, start planning that now, and then it's off everyone's mind. No one has to think about it anymore, and that is probably the most sensible thing to do.
I completely agree, because I mean, I know there's going to be money tied up in stuff, and there's going to be an impact no matter what. Someone's going to be hurt by whatever decision's made. But for me, I can't really see personally how you can finish the season. And to be honest, as you say, I want to start preparing for next season. We've got great talent. I mean, even if we finish the season, sort of start the season back in June, finish the season by the middle of July, if we are still to start the season again as it normally stands, you've got less than a month to have your off season and restart it again, starting for August start date, which is never going to happen.
Do you think they might do it so that what we've had is already an off season, and so they'll just go straight into a new season? Because obviously, they need a break, but at the same time, they've had that break almost, and so it means they can then just go straight into the next season without having an off season, a pre-season, and then back into a season.
I mean, if you think around it, it's another area that a lot of clubs make a lot of money from. So financially, they're going to get hurt from not having an off season, because
they won't be able to go anywhere anyway, will they?
No, it's a true point there, but it's one of those ones where you just go, I can't see sort of. It's always nice to have that break between one season and the next, because you sort of
just concentrate on transfers, don't you?
Yeah,
as a fan.
And then that's the thing for me, is sort of that's what I want to start to look forward to. Is I recognise we're probably not going to get the end of the season, and even if it is, it's going to be not as special as it would have been if we played it end to end. Like if we get sort of, as a Chelsea fan, we drop out into fifth and don't get Champions League next season, we'll feel cheated. But you're going to see a load of players, sort of teams in the relegation who are going to feel cheated. And I think sort of for them just to sort of get us to play that out, no matter the outcome, you're going to feel cheated, because that time that's elapsed is now going to have an impact, no matter what, into different decisions that could have changed the outcome. And I'm almost sort of like, I'd rather they finish it, do points per game or whatever their decision is, and then we now focus on next season, because I think we need to bring in fresh talent. We all know that. There's talent that needs to be replaced and brought back into the squad, and then looking to mould that squad together so we can get ready for the next season. Because I think you've got something to work towards now. If you play it up until the end of July and then start again in August, there's no real sort of start and end. It's just sort of a continuation, and then you're clearing the points. And I'd rather we just sort of go and bring in some new talent, which we're going to have to do. Although we've managed to sort of secure keeping Willie, keeping Giroud for another season, they're not players who are going to change the season. They're just good squad players. And for me, there is a gap, and we are probably in the most fortunate out of most of the clubs in the fact that we've not invested for the last couple of transfer markets, so we've got money to spend, even though some of that will have been eaten into managing COVID. But for me, it's like, right, who can we bring in to reinvigorate that we don't just have a fourth? We're aiming for the sort of Premier League, Champions League next season. So on that note, what do you think? Sort of, so who would be your top three players to bring in, and top three players to take out, and we'll ignore fringe players, squad players. Who would you sort of do that from that perspective?
So I'll say the outs first. Go to the outs first. Number one out, I would say, is Emerson. I think. So for me, I think we need to lose at least one of those left backs. I would say that Alonso's good to keep because of the fact that he can play well as a left wing back. So if we're playing five at the back, which Lampard has done on occasion, he's good there. There's not many better than him in that position specifically. Emerson, he is a good left back. He's not a great left back, and that is, I think, for a while that's been a sticky position for us. Once we've gone to four at the back, Alonso last season was terrible as a left back. Emerson came in, took him a while to get up to Premier League standards. He ended the season fairly well, started this season fairly well, but he's not like brilliant. We've got Reece James now coming through on the other side who is, brilliant. He's going to be absolutely class. So we need someone on the other side. Get to that part later. So number one, Emerson is out. Two, I would say, is Barkley. I know he's English, which helps with the quotas and all that kind of stuff. But he's not a Chelsea player for me. He's come in and he's had a good few games here and there, but he's just not got that consistency. And I think he probably was at a club just about right for him when he was at Everton. Yeah. I think the best he could hope for is another kind of mid-table team like Tottenham, that kind of that kind of position. But no, he just never seems to have suited us. And if he does have a couple of good games, even if he went 2-3 games back to back playing well, he just never carries it on forward. And when you look at that midfield we've got, it's packed with talent. And so, say even we play three in the middle, we've got Kante, Kovacic, Jorginho, Mount, Loftus-Cheek. He would be sixth choice out of that. Yeah. And even Gilmour as well. He'd be seventh. So so Barkley would be seventh choice for me out of that. And what's the point? He's probably on quite a lot of money. I don't know how much what his wages are, but he's probably on a fair bit. And I just don't see the need for him anymore. Loftus-Cheek can do everything he can do better, plus more. He's an okay squad player to have. He's served a purpose. Even this season, when he came back in, he scored one of the goals against Liverpool in the FA Cup. So he's had a couple of okay performances, but he's just not at the level for me. And the third out would be Batshuayi, I think. When he first came, he got the goal that won us the league in, 2017, 2018. Got us the goal that won us the league, which, standard Batshuayi come on as a sub to do that. When he went to Dortmund, looked brilliant. I was thinking, we've got a striker here. He's banging in the goals over there. Fantastic. Then he went on loan to Valencia, didn't look great. Crystal Palace didn't look great. We kept him for this season. Every time he's come on, he's been absolute pony. He's not had a good game once. Okay, no, that's a lie. Against United in the Carabao Cup when we got knocked out, he scored a screamer. But other than that, he's done nothing.
Yeah, he couldn't hit a barn door most of the time.
No, and you need someone, I think we were talking about this last week, you need someone to compete with Tammy And
Yeah.
I'm not saying we bring in a brand new striker who would go in ahead of Tammy, because I think that would kind of stunt his development a little bit. But I think we need someone, either a world-class striker who is coming towards the end of their career, someone along the lines of Mertens or Cavani, that kind of older guy who can help with Tammy's development, or you just go for someone who is of a similar level to Tammy, who is going to push him for the starting place.
Yeah.
And so someone like Dembele, but it looks like he might go to United now. But yeah, so Batshuayi, he's not good enough to be our second choice. He'll only be third choice. Even then, I don't fancy him anymore. I don't think he's good enough to be our third choice anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with all those three as people to leave. And I'll give I'm going to try not to sort of overlap on any of yours, and I'm probably going to now be a bit of a devil's advocate on some of them. But if I go through my three that I'd probably let leave from a set of squads at the moment. So the first one I'm going to go for is Christensen. So as much as I thought, he's been a player for many seasons I've wanted to be successful. He's been, when he sort of over in Germany, did an absolutely fantastic job. He's come through our youth system, and he's just been one of those players I've been like, this will be his season, this will be his season. And I started to see some of it under Conte, when under the five at the back, he was capable. But then equally, you had David Luiz, who is incapable at times, and it was effectively
that was the season when Luiz wasn't playing, wasn't it? Because Conte's first season, it was Cahill, Luiz, and Azpilicueta playing the centre backs, and then it was the following year when I think it was we brought in Rudiger and Christensen was playing, and I think Azpilicueta as well, and it was just not the same. That defence didn't look the same, and I know what you're saying. I always kind of thought Christensen was going to get good, and he's never been bad. He's just not been at the level that I thought he was going to be.
I think he, as you say, he'd be a perfect at someone like a Tottenham, where you're not challenging for the top, but you're a good squad player. But for us, he's always had a mistake in him. He's had some really good turnout performances, but I've almost sort of like, he's now getting to that, do you keep him or not? And I'd rather bring in someone like a Van Dijk-esque player who is going to be mature in that defence and put structure around it, and then hopefully encourage other defenders. And it was a very short, close call between him and Zuma. But from what I've seen, Zuma's just got something a little bit different. And got some, in the fact that he can play. He's played he's done a number of loan outs to sort of Everton and Stoke, and he looks like he could still become that great player. I think he can. So I wouldn't want to lose him. The second one I'm going to go for, and it's probably going to be a little bit controversial, is Jorginho. I think he's been amazing when he was playing on the Sarri. You could see hints of where he was coming from. A lot of players in the first season were like, do you know what, he's not quite good enough. But I think to your point there, we've got a bloated midfield, and not to sort of say the same player as Barkley, because I do happen to agree with you there. I struggle to see how you can retain that much talent and still bring through the likes of Gilmore, and because I felt really sorry for Gilmore because he was having the games of his life just before.
It was. He had two back-to-back worldies against the two Liverpool clubs, and then that's when things kind of came to an end. But yeah, he was. I think he got man of the match in both of those games, didn't he? He was.
And for me, it's one of those ones where I feel we need to let go some of our midfield to allow talent like that to come through. And Jorginho plays that role well, but if Juventus come in with a 30, 40 million pound bid, I'd be more than happy to let him go, because I wouldn't see that much. I don't think we'd miss him that much. I think he's had some
maybe
great...
a bit more money than that, though. I think we want to return what we got for him. I know that the market's probably going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
But I think we could hold out for. I think what we paid 45, 50 million for him.
Yeah, and I think
we can get 50, 60 back.
I think we still can, and I think sort of with Juve wanting him, I'd be more than happy to let them take him, just because I want to make sure that we don't retain talent. We don't lose talent because we're retaining others. Like
Yeah,
he's as you say, £45 million player. That for me doesn't guarantee he gets in the squad above someone like a Gilmore.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, he does a great job for us. I'd just rather see more talent come through.
I
And the
kind of
final
think
one was
you're gonna have to. Sorry, I think out of the two of those, you have to look at Kante or Jorginho. One of them, I don't know if they can both fit into a team. Kovacic is a perfect player to play with either of them.
yeah,
But I don't see both of those just kind of working together. So, and personally, I would take Kante every day of the week. I know they are different styles of players because Jorginho is a deep line playmaker. He gets the ball, he pings it around, kind of like a Cesc Fabregas when he was playing for Chelsea. He's a bit deeper and he's just pinging the passes around. Kante's just a workhorse, wins the
yeah,
ball. I don't think he should be stuck as a defensive midfielder. It's his best position, yeah, but I think he does have the ability to play a bit further forward. I think he's the best in the world as a holding midfielder, but I think
yeah.
he's a very good kind of, even just playing a little bit further forward, he's still very good. He's just not as good as he is as a holding midfielder. So, yeah, out of the two of those, Kante would be the one you'd want to keep hold of for sure.
Exactly. And for me, I think as soon as we brought Jorginho into the squad, it's always been difficult to try and fit Kante into positions because you've got two very similar players. And as you say, I'd much rather have Kante any day of the week. He's the best in his role. And I'd much rather, I think him and Kovacic can become real sort of world-class partnership.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure that we're making space for a Mason Mount, a Loftus-Cheek, and a Gilmore in between those two players. The final one is a difficult one because you've stolen probably the three other alternative candidates for me. But I'm going to go with one just because I think he potentially's got promise, but I think both managers have had struggles with him, and
I think I know who you're going to say.
I think we've invested a lot of money in him, and I just don't know whether he's a good influence on the squad. And especially looking at the stats last season, for a player of his stature, he was in the bottom percentile for goalkeepers throughout all leagues. And that's not what we expect. We've had some real good goalkeeping pedigree over the last couple of seasons.
I'm guessing you're talking about Kepa because you haven't actually said
I am. So Kepa has been, he has the hints of being something special, but I think his personality gets in the way. If you look at the goalkeepers we've had to date, they've always been a safe pair of hands. Courtois, check. They have been amazing keepers, and even back to Kudicini. Kudicini was always a safe pair of hands and could do a job well. And I just don't know if Kepa can do a job well. I think he is one of those players that is aiming to become the sweeper keeper, the sort of playmaking sort of goalkeeper, and that sort of 13 outfield player. But he's not doing the basics right at the moment. And for me, that's what we need. A safe pair of hands. We're not at the moment needing a 13th player. We don't need to sort of involve that. We just need a good shot stopper because we're still maturing our defence. Our defence still is going to let stuff through. So you need a mature goalkeeper to handle those mistakes. And when he sort of made that sort of monumental mistake against Harry of not coming off, I've never seen a player done that. He became a laughing stock of in the league and probably did lose us that game. But for me, he's got an arrogance, which in certain players is brilliant. You look at Costa, he had the arrogance, but could pull it off. And I just haven't seen him pull it off yet. And I'd rather we bring in a keeper that's ready for our team at the moment rather than a player that we think is ready for us in a couple of years' time.
So on the back of that then, let's just flip it round and you can give your 3 ins then, because I'm going to base mine around the 3 outs that I'm going to, or loosely anyway, because obviously you need to replace them. So
I'll put the first one, so I'll start where I left off. So goalkeeping is an issue. Whether we replace Kepa or not this season, we're in the need to bring a new player in. And we're in a very strange position that there isn't a huge goalkeeping market out there. I mean, if you look a couple of seasons back when Courtois, De Gea, Oblak were all almost available and the top clubs came knocking, I don't think there's that sort of market at the moment because they've recognised how much of a premium you have to pay for goalkeepers because they are so monumental. Liverpool bringing in Alisson changed the way in which their squad will run. Obviously, Van Dijk came in at the same time. So I'm going to go with a player that I think is feasible, but equally will bring a solid pair of hands to the club. He's not necessarily a world-class keeper, but he is what I think he is. So I'm going to name Nick Pope simply because I think, firstly, British keeper bringing in that talent. So potentially we're not going to be replacing all that, but I think he has changed a club like Burnley. So first off, if you look at where he's come from, he was almost third string keeper and then catapulted to first string in the Burnley squad. And for me, competing against the likes of sort of Joe Hart and doing so much better. And I think for me, it's just someone who is going to really control the goalkeeping position. And I could have sort of gone with another young goalkeeper. I think young goalkeepers, you've got a real risk.
I think there's a couple of that level that you could look at. Even Henderson, who's been Henderson at Sheffield United. I know he's Man United, but he's not going to be first team at Man United for a while at least. So they could potentially be looking to sell him, profit on his success this season. I don't know if they'd sell him to us, but more likely us than to Liverpool, City, you know, the rivals for them. So I'm just trying to think, because I'm not going to name a goalkeeper. So the other ones I've kind of seen that's linked to are Anana at Ajax. Briefly Donnarumma, but not much. But he'd probably be my choice just in terms of he's very young and very good. I've seen this linked with Neuer, which is a strange one for me.
It's an interesting one though, because as you say, he's moonlighting his career. But potentially could become a nice deputy for Kepa. But for me, it's almost someone I want, someone who's going to keep on their toes. They're not going to just be with us for a year or two and we've still got that problem to go and fix. I think Nick Pope is a sort of player that I could bring in, completely being Demura at AC Milan. But he's an unknown entity. He's played in the Italian league very well. And equally, that's his boyhood club, taking him out of that whole environment of Milan and plopping into the UK, which is a completely different game. I think for a young player, you can really, and equally with a goalkeeper, it is completely balanced on personality and ability to react to sort of when you might go through on goal, make a massive mistake and how you react to that. And I think sort of the ease of transition of bringing in someone like Nick Pope is probably going to be successful straight away. Moving on from the goalkeeper. So midfield, I'm not going to do direct replacement because I don't think we need a direct replacement. Centre back, and I'm trying to think of a Van Dijk-esque player, and I can only think of one or two. One player who I would absolutely love to bring in would be sort of the Ajax, sort of the ex-Ajax teenager now at Juventus. So De Ligt, and I think he as a defender for his age is so mature, but probably wasted at someone like Juve because they are. Juve at the moment is one of those clubs that's just bringing in any talent that's ever been sort of associated with being good and just buying them in, and they're all stagnating there. And personally, he's a sort of player, although he's been linked to United and probably City and the like, but we could bring him in, partner him with Rudiger, and we would have our defence for the next 4 or 5 years. Rudiger moving on, bringing him back in, Zuma. You've got that defence sorted. And I think he brings in a level of class, leadership, all of the qualities we're looking for. Or the second point to that was whether we spend even bigger and go for someone like Koulibaly, who...
Well, he's going to be available, I think, Koulibaly at the end of the year, because Napoli look like they want to do a complete rebuild. So it looks like he is going to be moving on. Just depends where.
And my gut would be Delete. I just don't think we're going to get him. I think Juve have invested to get a big investment back from him. Koulibaly he's not young. He's still sort of 29, I think. But he would bring in a level of maturity, and he's a proven centre back.
Until maybe Tamuri kind of comes into maturity, comes into his prime, he can kind of coach him along as well.
Exactly.
And definitely then assist his development, I think.
The final one for me, and I'm probably going to steal some of your thunder here, is going to be Ben Chilwell. So not necessarily replacing the player I sort of had talked around in Christensen, but once again, there is a huge amount of quality that sits in our centre-backs, but they're not quite there yet. So I think we need to bring in a mature centre-back. Actually, I've got the completely wrong player that I was going to think of, actually. Chilwell is one player I'd really love, but I think I'm probably going to steal your thunder. The player I actually wanted to bring in, and the reason I've been reminded of myself is because I've just seen the notification on my phone of his hat-trick. Timo Werner. So Timo Werner for me is probably the brightest young talent in Germany, and probably the world coming through a striker. He is
world class. Debatable. You've got Haaland.
I just know we're not going to get him, and I'm being realistic here.
Not for a few years at least.
But for me, he is a striker. I know he's got admirations of working with Klopp, which for me is heartbreaking. But I think personally, we could build a squad with him and Tammy in. You could have Tammy being that target man, and Werner being that poacher. And I know that Tammy can do a lot of that himself. But it provides that competition for when we decide to have one striker, but the second one being able to compete and sort of interact with him, that are nice complementary elements to that. So although a bit all over the place, my three are definitely Dillet coming in. I'd like to bring in Nick Pope, and I'd like to bring in Timo Werner, because I think those three players coming in would definitely improve our chances of getting top next season. I'm probably hitting that back at you. What?
Yeah, so I'll start from where I started. So left back, it would be... I don't know if I would go Chilwell purely because of the money it's going to take to bring him in. I think, yes, he's young, yes, he's English, and yes, he's very good. But is he good enough for a 50, 60, 70 million pounds fee in this market when we've got other positions we need to figure out? I would say not necessarily someone who is a bit older, but I would say someone who's in their prime would be a better candidate, because we do have some youngsters coming through. They're just not ready yet. So we've got Matson, who is still coming through, and he's definitely raw. But I think he'll be a very, very good player eventually. So I would say someone along the lines of Tellers, I think, left back for me. His crossing of the ball, his set pieces, his ability to get down that wing, as well as defend. He's a solid defender first and foremost, but his ability going forward, which, let's be honest, that's almost as important these days for a fullback. When you look at Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson for Liverpool, they've redefined those positions really, and everyone is now trying to play catch up and have someone of a similar ilk to do that. So and the fact that if we haven't got Alonso playing, who is a goal threat, he not only create, but he can get goals from free kicks direct as well. And so I think he would kind of lead. He could take that position until we lead into where Matson might be ready to come in. And so it's kind of, you're getting someone in their prime, and you're not going to hamper maybe the development of a youth player coming through. I think it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
So I would go there, and I think he'd be quite a bit cheaper. I think he'd probably be looking 30, 35 million for Tellez. Or before this, I don't know what the market's going to be like now once everyone's back up and running, but
yeah,
I think he'd be a lot cheaper than Chilwell. Second player, again, as you said, I've got rid of a central midfielder. I don't think we need to replace a central midfielder. So I'm actually going to go for another winger and go for the big one, Sancho. He's the talent everyone in Europe wants. You'd probably say, most teams could sign anyone. First, he'd probably be Mbappe at the moment, but then and no one's getting Mbappe unless you're Real Madrid or potentially Barcelona. I wouldn't say so much Barcelona, more Real Madrid. But then I think Sancho is probably the second choice for most teams. They would say, yeah, Sancho would be my second, signing.
The big question then. So where do you fit him into that squad? Because
that's the difficulty. So I would say, if we've done it before, where we've had 4 quality wingers in the side, and you've had to balance them, and we've always done a good job at it. You'll pick up injuries throughout the season.
Yeah.
You want to rest players. I mean, we're trying to build a team, as everyone is, to compete on 4 fronts. We want to win everything that we're going for. If not, it's unlikely anyone's ever going to win the quadruple, but that's what everyone is aiming for realistically at the beginning of the season. All the top teams, they want to win everything they possibly can. So
who's your top two? Who'd be starting to then? If your first team,
I would say I'd say Sancho and Hudson-Odoi, but I think Ziyech could still be involved as a number 10 if we played in that, in that.
You wouldn't have Pulisic in that mix.
He'd be there or thereabouts, but I don't think he's at the level as the others. I don't think he's at the same level.
And then the other question is, you've got Mason Mount that last season has played a lot of playing in that wing role because they've not been able to put him into that sort of congested midfield. Where does Mason fit in? Because I mean, he's one of those players you can't drop with the form he's had.
Yeah, I think he could fit in the middle. So he could play alongside a Kante or a Kovacic or a Gilmore. He could play as a cam. He can play wide left. He is very versatile. So no matter who you're picking in all the other positions, you still have an option for where to put him. And I think I know it's difficult to juggle players, but as I said, we play in a league and in all these competitions where you're playing every 3 days. So if you've got 4 good wingers, you've got 3 good attacking midfielders, you've got players that play in different positions, it's going to make it so much easier so that you could play Man United on a Sunday afternoon and have one of your best 11s go into a Tuesday night Champions League game against Barcelona, and you can still play a rotated squad, but still, an absolute world-class starting 11. So that's the level we want to be at, and we to try and keep all those players happy is difficult. But if you're rotating them constantly, if every player is playing at least once a week, I think they can't complain too much. The only issue you'll have is if someone's in ridiculous form. If if we bought Sancho and he turned into the next Hazard at Chelsea, then you've got one spot really for everyone else to fight over. But I think with those players, none of them are at that Hazard level yet. So you could have all of these young, hungry wingers, and they're all going to be playing out their skin because they're competing with some of the best young wingers in the world to try and become the next Hazard, the next Messi, the next Ronaldo, and it's only going to get the best out of them. So I think even if we had to end up cashing in on 1 or 2 of them in a couple of years' time because they're not happy, you've got the best youngsters really, and you can pick which ones you want to keep, unless the likes of Real Madrid came in again and tried to prize them off of us. But that's not.
And then, so who's your last one? Who's your final?
So I definitely think that we would need to replace the striker, and I think that whilst Werner or Haaland or top striker would be nice, I think Tammy has the ability to get there. I don't think we'll ever really go back to a 2 up front. I think Drogba and Elka was the last we'll see of that for a quite long time. I think I probably would go with Mertens. I think, yes, he's only got a few years left, but we'll get him on a free because his contract's up at the end of the year. He hasn't signed a new contract yet, as far as I'm aware. So for him to come in, I think he's a different kind of striker that we don't have. We don't have that kind of striker. So, you've got Giroud, who's just a big unit in. He's good with his interplay. You've got Tammy, who's he's quite a bigger guy, but he's quick as well. But then Mertens gives you that different option. He's a bit smaller, he's a bit trickier. He's almost like he's almost like a winger that can play as a striker. Where I know we tried Hazard out there before, but it didn't seem to work so well. But he is someone who's actually accomplished at doing that position, and his interplay would be good, as well as his goal scoring ability in one-on-ones. And I think just for a couple of years as a backup option, you're bringing in real quality there and someone who knows where the back of the net is. So, and that wouldn't really hamper in Tammy as well, because I think Tammy's still going to be playing as the first choice probably. If not straight away, then he would kind of be taking the mantle over again. But I'd still put Tammy as the number one striker, even if we brought in Mertens. So I think it doesn't hamper his development. He's got someone experienced there who can kind of coach him along. Giroud's probably doing the same thing, but there's another, you're going to have two experienced strikers helping him along. And then you can kick that problem down a couple of years and think about your backup striker then when Tammy's got a few more years under his belt. Then you can maybe get another experienced striker as a backup and then another youngster. So we can look at, I think you've got Andrew coming through, who's an attacking player. What's the other guy's name? Because of a B, I can't remember. There's two. They came on against Everton, actually, both of them. Brozier. So one of them's a striker. I think it's Brozier's the striker. So he could be second, third choice striker in a couple of years' time. You give, again, same as kind of what I was saying with Tellers, you're giving yourself time for players that we know are going to be good. They're just not ready to come into the first team yet. So you're just kind of giving them a little bit more time to be at the level where they're ready to compete for the striker spot. And I think if we're going down this youth road, then this is the kind of thing I want us to be doing. Bringing in players to fill in the slot until we have someone ready to come into that spot and take it as their own. We don't want to see any more of these situations where we've got these brilliant youngsters, but they don't fit into our team because we've already got 500 million pounds worth of the starting 11, and then we lose a player like De Bruyne. Or I know De Bruyne stuff didn't come through our academy, but we had him as a youngster at our club, and we couldn't get him into the team. Went away, gone to a rival, and has turned into one of the league's best players. So we don't want to see that happen again. We're going down this route, so we might as well stick to it.
Exactly that. And I'm just having a look on the screen here around who the papers think we're going to sign. So they've gone with the Ajax keeper being the top. Icardi, Kai Havertz.
I'd like to see. I know he's another attacking midfielder, central midfielder, but again, very young, very raw, but very good already.
And then we've had, I completely agree. I think he looks like I can't see him going anywhere by Bayern, to be honest.
Yes,
Timo Werner.
German players who play well, except for Werner, going to Bayern. That would be typical.
So Werner's agent has apparently told Chelsea and Man United he's going to stub them in favour of Liverpool, which would be a shame because I think he'd be wasted there.
I don't see where he's going to fit in at Liverpool, to be honest.
No. There's a player that, to be honest, I don't think we need, but I quite like it purely for the hilarity of it really winding up United fans. Angel Gomez, I think he's another great talent, but potentially could leave on a free at the end of the season.
He would be another youngster coming through almost. I know, again, not from our academy, but he's very young, very raw. He'd need a season out on loan at least, I think.
Yeah.
So he might be on his way to Vitesse next year.
And then it seems to be sort of much of the same from what we've spoken around. I don't think obviously Moussa Dembele, but that looks like United have sort of bagged that up already. I heard an interesting one around Philippe Coutinho coming to us, which I'm really not keen on, to be honest. I don't think he's really found his place. And reading some really good articles, I feel that sort of player, Ozil, that sort of attacking midfielder position seems to have just disappeared. Players don't.
Yeah,
it seems to be a dying position, and I don't think I really want, unless Coutinho can come in and reinvent himself. I don't want.
That's the thing. Everywhere he's gone, he's had to kind of be pushed out to wide left, and he's not at his best there. He is a cam in all aspects. He is a good player. He's a very good player. Don't get me wrong, but that is a typical former Chelsea signing. That is the kind of player that, even last year before Lampard came in and we were under Sarri or we were under Conte or Mourinho, that is one of their signings. That is the kind of player that they would bring in and say, yeah, he's ready now, but he's got 2, 3, 4 years until he's going to start to decline. I think he'd come in, he'd do a good job. He's done that at Bayern. He's come in, he's done a good job. He's not been a star, but he's been a good player. And for, what's he going to cost? Like 60 million, probably.
I don't want to spend it, to be honest.
We don't need him. We don't need him.
So on that, I think it's going to be an exciting couple of sort of transfer market. I think it's going to be the first one I'm going to be looking forward to. I just hope to God we don't buy another midfielder,
unless we lose a couple.
Yeah, but I think we've set ourselves up nicely for next season. But look forward to everyone tuning in again next week, and we'll hopefully have some more insight as to when we're going to see football happening again. You can like, subscribe, and then comment below if there's any changes or critique of our decisions on the transfer market. We'd love to hear your feedback. Until next week, we will catch you all soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.